Hey guys, we are back with another episode of Civ 5. We are quickly approaching the end of our little playthrough here, and we have a few more parts in the series, probably another 2 weekends, but can't imagine the game going on after that. Somebody's gonna win. Hopefully it's us. Might not be us, but hopefully it's us. We definitely have all the necessary pieces in place to win a game. Although how we're actually going to pull that off, I'm not quite sure about yet. But looking at the game footage, we have a decent-sized empire. We managed to keep all our ill-gotten gains, and we are on the fast track to consolidating our empire into a functional empire as opposed to a collective of stolen properties. But that's not going to be instantaneous. We're going to need a few turns to get everything more or less working. But we're in the right step. We're building our production up. We're building our science up. 500 a turn's not bad. It's not by any stretch of the imagination where you should be at 220. But it's not bad. Definitely played worse games of Civ. World Congress is still a little iffy. Don't think we're going to be able to generate enough currency to actually overtake the positions that have been solidified in the World Congress. You never know, though. Might be one of those long-term projects in the game. We're quickly moving up the technological tree. And we do have 3 out of 4 capitals, so we have 2 possible victory conditions that we can pursue. Just ends up defending how much of a pain it's going to be to take the capital of Arabia. I don't know what that is, actually. It's escaping my mind, and I don't think I ever actually look at it, so we may never know what the capital of Arabia is. The real-life capital of Saudi Arabia is... I don't know how to say it out loud, but it begins with an R, ends with an H. Might be Mecca in the game. Might be Mecca. He is ahead of us in a lot of things, but he's not ahead of us in tech, which is one of the few statistics that really, really matters. Making 111 culture return. That's a pretty good metric. Our gold problems are more or less solved. Our happiness is still way lower than it should be. Not extremely lower, but we could be doing better. And hopefully we will in the near future. We are going to continue to try to keep England in power. England is better than Arabia. Since we can't be in charge, might as well have somebody else in charge. Our friend Arabia did backstab us in the last video, so it's not as though we can actually trust him. Although I don't know how much we actually set England back. I assume we at least provided them with a significant setback, but we don't know how significant that setback would be. When we checked their city a couple episodes ago, they were producing like 70 science in London, so it was a big city and a big science center for them, but may not hit them enough that they won't be able to challenge us again. We may end up needing to take that center city as well, but that would require repositioning of our forces, and probably not worth it. Might have to wait until we get this whole Arabia situation sorted out. There's not a lot going on in the game at the moment. As I said, Civ 5 can be a little slow at times, and just have to learn to live with that. I suppose you could also go about it when as like a really warlike Civ. You're playing like a Zulu, it's not slow because you're always marching troops somewhere. Zulu is a really fun Civ. Ink is also really fun. Depends on how you play him though, and what circumstances you find yourself in. Like if we had started out with a couple of mountain ranges close to our capital, we would have been able to get a really good growth start going, and then we would have been able to just sit on the 4 cities we had and outpace the AI. Unfortunately, we didn't get to use our bonuses that much, so we had to actually go to war in order to secure our standing on the world stage. Now, whether or not we're going to have to continue to go to war to keep our position is a matter of question. Right now I'm thinking no. I'm thinking that we can just coast along for the rest of the game. So science may be our victory type of choice, because we can grow Capital City up to the point where it can build spaceship parts pretty easily, and after that part, it should be pretty well defensible, too. I mean, we already have a decent-sized army, so 113,000, I think, is the last check. So it's not as though we're completely defenseless should something go wrong. And I seriously doubt Arabia's little ploy is going to pay off for them. Especially considering that most of the techs we're researching in the modern era are sub 10 turns. That was odd. Although we're going to need to up our science before we can get to the information era. Right now, even some of the atomic era is outside of our outside of our science production range. But our science has dropped a little bit as we're trying to grow a little bit more. But growing when you're so far in the happiness hole isn't going to work that well. At least we have a few places where we can still build happiness buildings. And we can start to upgrade our army. We got oil, which means that battleships and planes are on the table if we want them. I'm not going to say no to them just yet, as I don't know which direction we're going to end up ending this game at. It shouldn't be extremely difficult to actually get a science victory, because we are at the point where we're producing science that's not awful, and I don't think any of the AI are close to us in terms of science. We're at least 4 techs ahead of Arabia, which means we should have a decent enough lead that if we can just compound our science production, we should be able to strengthen it, and with the production of great scientists, we should also be able to start pulling further and further ahead. Population is an issue. It's one of the few stats that directly correlate to science. With Arabia being ahead of us, it means their science production probably isn't awful. Like, I don't think it's close to us, because we have eclipsed them in science for a long time, but it's probably getting close to ours. Just need to keep the gap up as long as we can. I actually built a really nice little empire. I'm proud of it. Got most of the strategic resources I'd like to. We haven't discovered uranium yet, which means we don't know if we have the most important resource, but we have aluminum, oil, coal, iron. All the things you think about when you think of modern empires. Although I guess in the modern world there aren't really that many empires left. There are a lot of big nations out there, but they don't really consider themselves empires. Although I guess whether or not your empire might be a matter of perspective, isn't it? Because I know the United States has been accused of being an empire sometimes. But we don't think of ourselves as an empire, so I think it might be a bit of a misattribution. But you never know. As in most things, it's a matter of perspective, and it's impossible to occupy multiple perspectives if you don't know all the context involved. Building up our research labs, they will be instrumental in our production of science. We're actually building a lot of science buildings. Might even need to buy some in the future, but the research labs are the last real science building on the tech tree. So, after we get them up, we could conceivably start saving our great scientists for a science bomb. That's one way to play the game. It works really well with civs like Babylon, which produce a lot more great scientists. And a Arabian privateer and an Arabian musketman have shown up at the doors of London wanting entry. Sadly for them, all we can offer them in exchange as hospitality are the shells of artillery pieces. But what can you do? They had it coming. Oh, there's a cannon up there as well. Caught that out of the corner of my eye. Well, we don't have any artillery to offer them, but we can offer them something else. Looks like we're just gonna use the great scientist. Probably smart in this situation as we are involved in a war. And when it comes to being involved in wars, tech level tends to be the best option for dealing with invasions. Like if you can get a high-tech army, you can beat a much larger army with little problem. Being said, if your tech levels are comparable, you are probably going to end up with a bad time if you have a smaller army. England's army is a ways behind us, but it's not completely outclassed by our army, which is a little worrying. Wally's a decent pickup for sieges. I don't know if we'll have any more sieges that involve artillery pieces, but zone of control means that our poor little infantry unit can't actually attack despite having the available movement, because he did move on a road, which meant he should have had at least 0 movement left afterwards, which you'd think would mean he wouldn't be able to move, but in the case of Civ, there are weird halves and quarters that mean even when you're at 0, sometimes you can move. So it's good to keep an eye out for those kind of things. Universal suffrage will definitely help us. Up to 12 happiness, that's really good. It means we can continue to grow a little bit. May not be the biggest priority at the moment, but growth is very important to the long-term health of an empire, so you at least want to have some of your cities growing most of the time throughout the game. And unfortunately for the Arabian forces that have shown up at our door, they are hopelessly underprepared for the actual combat that they're going to be involved in, because a caravel is not going to actually take down London. Caravel could have taken down London, it would have long ago. No, London is defended by artillery pieces and infantry units. It's going to take something impressive to take it down. Which, knowing the AI, I know they're pretty much not capable of something impressive. They're really good at cheating, but they're generally not known for their high-octane, highly tactical plays. Got to make sure we use all of our bombards, so can't just take out units willy-nilly. Gotta make sure there's always some room left over to hit other things. Having artillery stationed on roads is actually really useful because that way they can move and attack, which is something that the standard artillery before you get rocket artillery can't do, because they need a turn to set up. Well, they need a movement point to set up. So if you have them set in one place, you can set them up and then attack the same turn, but they can't move, set up, attack. Unless they're on something like a road or a railroad, in which case they'll get the benefit of movement that allows them to perform the 3 actions without having additional movement points. I know this all sounds a little more technical than normal, but I'm awake in the morning and it's been a little bit longer, so I'm a little bit more clear-headed into this. At least I can see how some of the things I've done make a little bit of sense. We got out a battleship. That's good. Although, unpuppeting our city did cost us a great deal of happiness, so it's not as though our cool battleship didn't come at a price. But it was a cool battleship. I'm not going to say it wasn't, because that's a nice battleship. So, I have had a little bit of time to think about what's going to be after this game of Civ, and I don't rightly know what it's going to be yet. Could be anything, really. Although it may be a game it'll probably continue to be a game that I'm somewhat competent / familiar with. Although we might play something out of the box, too. But I doubt it. I think we're going to go with something that I can feel as though I have a degree of expertise in, you know? So games that fit that category are Civ 5, Stronghold Crusader, Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim. What other ones? Probably the first 2... Well, I say the first 2. I was going to say the first 2 gens of Pokemon, but I don't really know them that well, you know? Like, I do. But I'm not that competent. What other games? We can play some... I guess we could move some Magic to the weekends. Like maybe a game or 2 of Brawl. That would be fun. Odd that I haven't realized that I'm not that competent in a lot of games. I mean, I guess I could also add the KOTOR games to the series. Well, KOTOR 1. Because I'm not that good at KOTOR 2. Although, to be fair, games like Morrowind, Skyrim, and Oblivion, those 3, very competent at. I know how to pretty much solve any quest, and where pretty much any unique artifacts are, / unique non-artifact weapons, and armor. But that just comes from a lot of experience at the games. I think out of the 3, it's probably Morrowind that I have the most experience in. Probably the most playtime in it. But it's been out longer, that's to be expected. And I didn't get the game when it was released because I was like 5 at the time. Morrowind is not a game you give a 5-year-old. So I played it like when I was 12, 13. So it was already out by the time I got to play it. But still a good game. Still an interesting game, and one that you could definitely appreciate more if you know. If you're a little bit more world understanding or world conscience. Try to give Arabia a counter deal for their supposed peace. Got rejected. I'm sure it's not something that will be all that, what do you call it? Don't know. I think I have flies in my brain. Ooh. See that in the darkness? Arabia has discovered flight. That's why there was a mysterious one floating over the darkness. Another great scientist has been born, as expected of our glorious empire. I'd say we are not, uh, we're not a terrible empire, but we are a glorious one. We're definitely we're actually a freedom-based empire, so we're kind of like the United States. Although, we did kind of invade our neighbors and take their things. The United States kind of did that too. I mean, we kind of invaded the North America and took a bunch of things, so we're not that different. I'd say it's the whole Peter Parker meme. You and I are the same. Although I think that the Incans might get a little bit worse swept in this world than the Americans in the real world. Because we have been a bit aggressive. Not saying we were wrong in our aggressive assertions, but we have been aggressive. I will not deny that. We can build great war bombers too. I assume that's what the Arabians are rocking around with. Hey, there's a cannon. Take pot shots at it from the shore. From the coast, actually. They're on the shore, we're on the coast. One of those weird dichotomies where the word kind of gets flipped around in your brain and you come to a different conclusion than what's actually before your own eyes, you know? I wonder if I'm any good at talking fast. But I tend to talk a little bit more slowly, but I feel as though I do a lot of rambling in these videos, so it's fun to try out different styles of commentary. Got a great engineer in Capital City. He's going to build something great for us. Off of his labors, a great building will be added to our glorious empire, and all the goodness that comes with that. We have captured an archaeologist. Dangerous lot archaeologist. They carry around bullwhips, and they have hats, and they play with alien skulls. It's really weird. We are not going to keep the throne in England's hand for much longer, are we? Gotta make sure that arts funding doesn't happen. Or do our part to try to make sure that arts funding doesn't happen, because our whole goal for the last half of the game is generating great scientists, which would be hampered by the negative 33% penalty from arts funding. Which is weird. I don't know why Civ 5 decided that because we like artists now, there won't be any more scientists, but I guess it's based on the principle of give and take, that because funding is going to the arts, less funding is going to the sciences, and therefore there's less likelihood that a scientist would be born, but it seems a bit contradictory in my opinion. They should go out sometime today, because this will be commentated upon the day it goes out, so we will have a discussion on this. About to say we're moving along in the series that we have active. Japanese practice and off. Off I didn't expect to do exceptional out of the gate, because it's a little bit of an obscure title. I mean, it's been played on YouTube a bit, but it's not one of like the go-to RPGs for the platform, I suppose. But I'm still having a lot of fun. I don't remember it as well as I thought I would, so there are still surprises and still things that I can find quite disturbing in it. Civ 5 actually did pretty well for as far as videos go, because everybody loves Civ 5. It's one of the funnest 4X games out there, I suppose. Well, 4X strategy games, I suppose, would include a much larger category, but it's one of the more fun turn-based strategy games out there that has historical backing. We're going to get the Statue of Liberty next turn, so we should hopefully be able to do that. I doubt anybody's going to jump on the freedom bandwagon now that we're on it, so I assume that our wonder will go uncontested. Then after this, we should be able to get this audio stitched onto the video file and then uploaded to YouTube. Come up with some catchy title. I haven't came up with a title for this one yet. The last one's title, Protecting Our Ill-Gotten Gains, is probably still applicable to this one, to be honest. Because Arabia is still doing their best to sink our ship. And that's not good of them. It's not good at all. Honestly, I have no clue how Arabia intends on winning the game. They don't seem to be doing anything too threatening at the moment, but they are being rather aggressive towards our own expansion. And it ended up being one of the things like, maybe Arabia wouldn't have attacked us if we hadn't taken London, but it's the AI. They would have attacked us eventually. I have to say, there's one thing you can count on in Civ 5, it's that the AI is going to be an asshole at some point in the game. Like, they're not very competent at maintaining diplomatic relations. Although, to be fair, as a video game, you do have to be a thorn in the winner's side whenever you can. Let's face it, we can't just let somebody win. They have to earn the victory. My leg is falling asleep. I have to say, I sit cross-legged on a little, I don't know what you would call it, but it's just like a little chair thing. And when I do that, occasionally my leg will go to sleep. And it's always rough when it does. But it'll wake up here in a second. I had to change my seating position, but well worth it to avoid the pains of being asleep while also being awake. I think thanks to Arabia, we're at war with every city-state in the game. If we had spare happiness, it'd be a great excuse to take a few of them out of the game, but can't really do that. Not on such a small map with so few players. So it'd be great if somebody else took out a city-state, so that way we could go and liberate it and get a friend in this world. But perhaps as the Incan people, we are just not meant to have friends in this world. I hadn't considered the possibility, but it is a distinctly possible one. We're going to have actual planes here next turn, which is going to be great for us. Because if the Arabians are sporting Great War bombers, a fighter plane will be able to pretty much hamper them from bombarding London into the ground. And we have our battleship over by one of their cities scouting things out, so we should know what kind of forces that they're sporting. Judging from the size of the army there, it's not too impressive, but you never know, that could change. We have about 2 minutes left in the video, so just thinking things over, seeing if we have forgotten anything, see if there's anything we need to address before we end off for the day. I don't think there is, to be honest. I think I've pretty much covered everything that I want to cover, but it's always good to take a moment to think to yourself, is this the way it should be? And I think that this is the way it should be. I think I have covered everything that I'd like to. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. We're at the part in the video where we have dissidents in our freedom-based ideology and the world is insane, so I think it's pretty close to the time where I can say thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed our little episodic adventure here. Our weekend sessions will quickly be coming to an end as we enter the atomic era, and I can just assure each and every one of you that I did not decide to give off my ending speech too early. I'm not just continuing to ramble because there's still time left in the recording that I haven't filled out any space for. And I want to make sure that I end off properly, so that way I don't end up having any questions as to the legitimacy of my Civ 5 run. Because, you don't want to get caught up in that YouTube drama. I've never heard tell of anybody accused of cheating in their Civ 5 games, but it could happen. I could be the first, and I don't want that to happen. So, as I fill out these last 40 seconds with commentary about how I'd like to thank you all for hitting the like and subscribe button, and how leaving your comments every day warms my cold and bleak soul more than anything you might ever know. But all of that is beside the point, as we are earning 40 gold a turn, and this bit that I've been going on is coming swiftly to an end, as the clock timer says 23 seconds, so this time for real. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Bye for now.